I was just thinking, I can't wait for the show. It's going to be fantastic.
Argentina deserved to win. We missed 40 tackles.
This opens up the Rugby Championship. Now everyone is back in it.
Yeah,
It's not a yellow card. It's a penalty.
it's a
every
yellow
day,
card. He changed his lane.
I'm so glad Rugby is on today.
Who is going into the Eden Park test in the best shape?
You can never arrive in New Zealand as favourites, especially when you play at Eden Park.
If New Zealand lose to South Africa, it's an absolute crisis.
Right, welcome to Rugby Rivals. I see Trimby's jumped on board as well, so everyone's excited to have a chat. There's not really much to talk about this week, so I thought maybe we won't do a show. What do you reckon?
I just want to know, why don't we have the white glasses? Why is it the black glasses this morning?
Well,
Is there a
Because
reason
I'm in
behind?
mourning. Because I am in mourning, Victor. I am in mourning, mate. Like, last week when I jumped online, I'm sort of, thinking, wow, how good is this? With our competition, this is great. The All Blacks are going to get through the second test and we're going to come to Eden Park and no one's going to be worried. And now I'm not sleeping at night. So I am absolutely gutted, to be fair, because I'm like you, Victor. I'm just such a passionate All Black fan. And I don't want to, in all these discussions, I don't want to take anything away from Argentina because I thought they were outstanding. But it was just a hard watch, I think it's probably the worst performance I've seen from the All Blacks for a while. So, I know how you felt last week, Victor. I'm feeling exactly the same this week, to be fair.
Isn't it more worrying? Because so that when South Africa have a bad game, what do? They do what we all expect them to do. They go physical, they go confrontation, they go direct, they go kicking game, and they do that all incredibly well. It's easy for them to go back to that.
It has changed, and this opens up the Rugby Championship.
They do best. So it's more difficult for them to go back to being the best version of themselves. Or is
And
that
I was
too
just
fluffy?
getting getting to like you, Trimby, to be fair.
Yeah, that's to make you sadder. I can see, as I'm talking, I can see your glasses get darker and darker.
They're gonna steam up. They're gonna steam up shortly. No, look, when I analysed it and when I went and re-looked at stuff, I think, Rassi, who's, never scared to make a headline, said, we were dog shit last week after that game. And it's a pretty fair summary of what happened with the All Blacks. I think, our defensive line, we missed 40 tackles. We missed 40 tackles. A lot of the other tackles, I believe, were quite passive. So the defensive line wasn't coming forward because after a couple of rucks, the Argentinians were actually breaking through and getting that extra yard and a half. So it started with that. Our kicking receiving game was the worst I've seen. And that's a little bit of a concern because that South Africa are going to bring that, but Argentina are going to bring it, right? And then I think some of our superstars that sometimes can just break a game open and turn that feeling that you've got, just didn't. I think Will Jordan, it was his quietest test match ever. Artie was quiet. I think there was just this combination of stuff. And Argentina, I thought, were outstanding. I thought their tactics were outstanding. I think they had a good mix of playing expansive, but also their kicking game was next level. But they were just very, very good at the breakdown, at the defensive line, at their tackle line. So it was that bad that I'm actually not that worried. Does that make sense?
Well, I used the word arrogant last week with the box, and I was probably not the right word. I actually think we were more we just want to push our game too far. But I want to go back to that arrogant, and I think, especially maybe South Africa, New Zealand, I think we still live in the 90s, early 2000s, where we think if we've got a good team, we should beat everyone. And I think the rugby world has changed. I really think so. Even South Africa Saturday against Australia, although I thought we were better, it was still a struggle. But I really believe these days, there's 5, 6 teams out there that on any day can beat anyone. It's not like in the old days where the All Blacks will have a 90, 85% win record anymore. I think it has changed, and this opens up the Rugby Championship. I think all of us last week we spoke about it. It's a 3-horse race with Australia. Now everyone is back in it, and I think it's fantastic for the competition. And everyone is so close. And if you've got a little bit of an off day, or you think you're going to smash someone, your mindset's not quite there, these other teams can beat you on any day. So if you're not on your game, there's quite a few teams these days that can beat us. It's not like in the early 2000s, late 90s, where even if you've got an off day, you'll still win the game. So I think everyone is much closer.
I don't disagree with that at all. I do not disagree with that at all, Victor. I think you're right. And I think, Ricardo sent me a funny clip from a New Zealand comedian guy who I really like. He said, it's good for the game. But that's just it's just an annoying saying. But when competition's close, when competition's close, mate, it's good. And I think it is. I'm really excited about the championship. The only question I have for you, Victor, is I think that it was more like if we had have played well and Argentina had have beaten us, I would have been more worried. But I just think it was one of those, no one played well, I don't believe. I think that they're criticizing Bowden, and I don't know what you think, Trimby, but I thought Bowden was really good. I don't think I'd take him off unless he didn't execute a kicking plan. So I don't disagree, Victor, but I also think that it's 3%, right? I reckon it's 3%, but I think we were 5 or 6% off our performance. I watched the South African game and the Aussie game, and, my respect for this Australian team continues to grow every week. The Springboks were really good. And I think you are trying to change your game. So I get some of those errors, right? Because you're trying to play that mix of expansive. But, yeah, that's why I'm...
10 always gets the blame, though, JK, don't they? 10 always gets a disproportionate amount of the blame or the praise depending on how the team goes. And we all know that 10's going to need to perform as well as they're allowed to perform. And the platform, the pack, give them set piece, all that stuff. The kick return, I definitely saw that, JK. It looked like you'll feel that, and All Black supporters will see that and feel that, but it looked uncharacteristic that, whatever contestant in the air, Argentina went after them there. They usually don't get that much joy. Argentina are obviously strong there, but the All Blacks don't usually cough up that much ball or that many opportunities for teams to kind of regather the 50-50s. But even the long kicks, chasing back long kicks, and not a little bit loose. If it's a little bit loose, if it's a little bit off the touchline, that's just where New Zealand punish you. They, if maybe Argentina are conceding pressure a little bit and they eventually kind of get a scrappy exit out, that's when New Zealand punish you, because you think you're gone and then you're immediately under pressure again. And I agree, in the past, how many times have we seen Will Jordan just get his hands free, look for an offload, make a line break, and it just wasn't there. And not seeing that, you realize how important that is for New Zealand to thrive. And then defensively, I actually thought, rather than it being New Zealand being passive and missing tackles, they tried to introduce a little bit of line speed a couple of times and got stepped and got done, and it looked like a team that were trying to kind of move or change a little bit in that space. I don't know if you guys spotted that, but it felt like they were just doing things that were uncharacteristic. They were trying to introduce new things maybe defensively, and they got absolutely done. We know how good Argentina are. So many good guys with ball in hand, footwork, pace, everything. If you give them any space and you try and close it quickly with line speed, you get done with footwork, and that happened a few times against them.
So JK, I think so when you had the South Africans last week, they made lots of changes. They changed their game plan. They tried to play a different, expansive game. It didn't work. They lost to Australia. But when you look at the All Blacks, that was, a pretty consistent selection. They played a game which is something they're very comfortable with, and they still got well beaten. How did they change that?
Well, what do you mean well beaten, Ricardo?
Well beaten. Argentina deserved to win that game.
Yeah, totally. I'm not disagreeing with that, but we still could have won it with 8 to go. Okay, so for me, so to answer your question, it's not in our psyche, and this is, I don't know what it was like when Victor played, but it's not in the New Zealand psyche to actually change a losing side, right? You normally get a couple of weeks grace. I think there's some tactical things we need to address. Like, I have never, and I'm sure you didn't laugh, Victor, because it's not the right word, but sometimes when you're upset, it's better to laugh than to cry. But we had to win that line out, right? And Takiaho, and I don't think it was his fault, because I just think the line out in front of him was, I don't know whose fault it was, but I've never seen an All Black line out capitulate like that. So I think the high ball reception is an issue. And is that an issue because they didn't kick much to Rico, but they did kick to Sevu Reece? So are they seeing a height issue, a technical issue, right? So for me, and Bowden was back there a wee bit as well. So for me, I don't think they'll make many changes at all, because these young men will be really hurting this week. And we have the biggest game of the century coming up, Victor. The biggest game of the century coming up.
Yeah, I just want to jump in, and I'm almost with Trimby on this. I think if there's one area that New Zealand need to sort out, it's the high ball. I mean, these days we all talk about attack, we all talk about line speed, but that aerial battle is so big in this modern game, especially now that you can't block it. And it was not just the aerial battle, but all the scraps also went to Argentina, and they get energy off that. The moment they start getting those loose balls a little bit quick, then the footwork comes into play. Those guys run onto the ball, they get momentum. Then you're in trouble, because they speed up the game as well. So I think for New Zealand, if they can just sort out that, because I think that's also something that takes energy away. I mean, if forwards need to run back, all of a sudden, okay, we're not winning it. Now we would need to work harder, need to get into line. Okay, we want to get the ball back. Now they maybe rush a little bit hard to try and get it back, make mistakes. And so that momentum just keep going with Argentina. But yes, John, we do have one of the biggest games coming up, and I've said it. I would rather lose to Australia and South Africa one and go over and beat New Zealand at Eden Park. So it's going to be big. South Africa, we kind of
Don't
in
even
between
dream
now.
about it, Victor.
So
Don't even mention it. Don't even mention it on the show. Like, we are talking tradition. But the other thing, Trimby, as well, just before we get on to that, Victor, because I don't want you to even mention it, mate. Don't even mention it. Not even going to consider it. The whole country is already no. 3 yellow cards also didn't help people. Discipline was terrible. And we spoke about
that's pressure.
Discipline, right?
That's pressure. Exactly. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. That happens because they were under so much pressure, and like they easily could have conceded 1 or 2 tries at the start of those yellow cards. At the end of the first half, they were under so much pressure. They scrambled so hard. Bowden Barrett had a couple of big moments in that passage of play to keep them in the game. But yeah, the New Zealand, South Africa, that those test matches coming our way are stressful for you lads and just pure entertainment for the rest of us, because someone's going to be upset.
So I'll talk to. I'll ask you first, Trimby. Was Will Jordan's I'm not, no disrespect to you, Victor, but you're a forward, right? But
it's a yellow card, yes.
Yeah, it's not a yellow card. It's a penalty.
It's a yellow card. He changed his lane. He knew exactly what he was doing.
But you know that when you're coming like that, that's the angle.
I'm so glad Trimby is on today.
Yeah, the winger, the Argentinian winger, probably the only thing that maybe made it go the other direction was he just made a little bit of a meal of it. He kind of stopped and kind of jumped, and it was a bit it made me think, that looks a bit clumsy. But then we look at back, the end on view, Will Jordan just turns his shoulder and turns into his lane, and it was definitely a yellow card for me. Sorry.
Oh, I reckon he hit the deck too easy.
100% agree.
So, Victor, just speaking on behalf of everyone in South Africa, what was your first reaction when the final whistle went and the All Blacks had lost this game?
To be honest, I didn't watch it live. So I watched about 20, 30 minutes, and I I fell asleep because we did celebrate a little bit after the Springbok game. And then in the morning when I woke up, I was just thinking, I can't wait for the show. It's going to be fantastic. But no, I mean, it just shows. And like I said, I really believe we forget that all the teams are so much closer these days. And if you're not on your game, you will get beaten. I mean, Argentina beat New Zealand in New Zealand last year. They beat South Africa there. So, I mean, they beat the British Isles Lions in that first test match. So, unfortunately for
Don't
them
bring
at
me
this
into
stage,
this. Don't bring
I
me
just
into
need
this,
to.
Victor.
You guys lost as well, not just us. I mean, unfortunately for them, it's just that consistency with Argentina. If they can get their consistency right, they're a threat. If they get that momentum in a game, it opens up, it gets loose. They're a very dangerous side. So, yeah, unfortunately, I would have actually liked New Zealand to win this game going into the next game a bit overconfident. Now they're going to be, they want to show they can come back. So it's going to be a massive game the next game.
Massive. It
Victor,
makes
that
it even bigger.
that realization that anybody can win this, and the games are far tighter. There's way more up for grabs now, and there's way more moving parts with Argentina going well and Australia going well. You mentioned you were celebrating after the Australia game 4 or 5 weeks ago, having won 1 out of 2 home games against Australia. You wouldn't have anticipated you'd be celebrating. Everybody in South Africa would be in tears until recently when we realized actually Australia they're actually a proper team now. They're properly competitive. They're properly physical, and they're a handful. So I'd anticipated your response to that would have been very different in maybe halfway through the Lions test. We all thought that second Lions test was going to be what did we say 40, 50 points to the Lions, and how much of Australia changed and how much of Argentina changed at the same time.
No, for sure. And I mean, even this game, I mean, if we, before the Rugby Championship, if you say, listen, you're beating Australia by 6 points in Cape Town, you said, that would have been a bad performance. But I mean, even in this game, it felt like we're going to go, but Australia they just stick in there and they just keep coming back and they don't make mistakes. And when they get opportunity, they use it. So, yeah, they're an interesting team to play at the moment. There's nothing flashy about them, but they're just really accurate in everything they do. So, I think they can surprise a few teams, but that expectation will start growing them as well now. So they will also start feeling the pressure to perform in certain parts, and that's the same with Argentina. I think this week, after last week's loss, it's almost okay. You can't win, and then that's when Argentina's at their best. If they don't feel the pressure, they just go out there and they just give everything.
I think that's part of where their consistency comes from. You know, they probably would have targeted the first test to win, right? And it didn't come off, and they would have been smarting all week. Yeah, and I just think the difference nowadays is so close. You're dead right. So for me, it just makes for this massive occasion, just this massive, massive occasion. Like, I was in the last team that lost, Trimby. That's how old I am. So we lost to France in 1994. But I also lost to, I drew. So we drew there as well. We drew against South Africa, actually, 19-all. And it was my last game for the All Blacks.
I'm very close to feeling sorry for you.
yeah.
Very close.
I almost got black glasses for you as well to put on, just to mourn with you, Mr. JK.
Do you need those, Victor? I can help you out. I can help you out with a pair. You come down to New Zealand.
So what did you think of the South African performance, actually?
So my theory is that South Africa are trying to play a different type of game or have more strings to their bow than just their traditional DNA. And I think that we saw that the first 5 in any game plan is fundamental, right? So, Victor, my question to you is, and you love your first 5, does he give you that ability to play both games?
I think at this stage, after last week's loss, we need to find that balance now. We almost went very conservative, but I think that's what the chat was about is let's look for kicking space. So for me, it's all about we need to get the balance right as well. I think losing Billy Leroux just before the game as well set us back a little bit because we know with Andre playing at 10, almost playing for position or territory, Billy is normally the guy that will call the ball for if he sees the space out wide. So probably missing out on Billy on that combination. But again, I think Billy is getting a little bit older now, and a guy like Fassi needs to step up and be that guy to be able to communicate with a 10 to make the right calls. So I think this was a performance by South Africa where just like, listen, if we go back to our DNA, know what we do, we won't lose the test match. It might be close, but we won't lose it. So I think that's what we went back to. Now it's just to get that mix between. I mean, in that first half and that first test, our attack looked so good. We've never got so easy momentum in a game. So it's a little bit of finding that balance. And also, I mean, we've lost some big players this week. Peter Steph Toy not there. Sia not there. So it's big players to lose just before the test match. We lost Jean-Luc Depree, I think 3 hours before the game. So all three loose forwards. So, yeah, I think it's just about that balance, getting that right.
If Willie Leroux's not available, then what happens? Because he's getting a little bit on at this stage. You might not have him for that much longer. Could someone like Damien Willemse, could he not do just as good a job in the future? Or can Fassi not do that second set of hands, that distributor? Because if it's that important, if it completely changes their whole DNA and their how they characterize, how they attack, there needs to be another solution, doesn't there?
Yeah, I think they can do it. And I think both of them loves to play the attacking game. I think it's just for them, and they're not young anymore. So I think Willy's just got a special skill. That's why he played over 100 test matches, because he's got that skill of seeing space and organizing and getting the ball in his hand and making the play. So those two guys, both of them probably better under the high ball. Fassi's got a big left foot on him, more speed than Willy as well. So it's that one skill that Willy's got that he's exceptional at. But I think both of the other guys can do it, and just takes time. And also, I think with Andre being so dominant at 10, for them to have the confidence maybe to override him and say, listen, we want the ball, let's go. And for Andre to trust him and give them the ball at the right time as well.
So, Trimby, you're the neutral here. Based on what you've seen in the last few tests, who is going into the Eden Park test in the best shape, South Africa or New Zealand?
I would say probably just about South Africa, but just New Zealand at home and the backlash from New Zealand that they're going to get, and all that hurting JK that's being kind of visually demonstrated through your black glasses, that hurt. There's a black, the land of the long black glasses shaped cloud all the way across New Zealand, both islands. Is I just think that fuels you, and we saw that how that fueled South Africa after hurting from that first defeat to Australia in 60 years or whatever. And then just that a week of hurt, it you channel that in the correct way. I do think it's more difficult for the All Blacks to channel that because they can't go back to what back to basics. And actually, I'm not sure if that's necessarily always a positive victory either. I think, Tony Ball, people talking about the expansive nature, they have to be able to find that middle ground. If every time going expansive doesn't work for them, if they go back to basics, they'll never move their game. They'll never move on. So pulling it all the way back is okay if then they get confidence back and then they start to layer back up on top of that, which I think you're saying the same thing. But they need that second set of hands. They need the ability to be able to do that. But that just felt like Razi just saying, right, let's do what we do best, and then we'll build up, we'll start again. But they can't start again every single time. The All Blacks think will be hurting. They will start again in their own way. But I just feel like South Africa, they've had 2 proper test matches they probably didn't expect to have, and they're probably better off for them, and they're a little bit more battle hardened than New Zealand would have been. Or battle, just that combination of battle hardened but also confident. They're going to go in licking their lips, as you say, Victor. They would have been in better shape had New Zealand won that game, because New Zealand now have that. They're going to use that hurt as a tool, and they're going to lean on that, and they'll probably get a response from that. It's going to be a great test match.
I'm going to say this before Victor does. The South Africans are world champions, and are current
double world champions.
Yeah, double world champions. But they're also, don't they have the championship from last year?
Yes.
So they come in favourites. They are total favourites. After our last result, they've got to come in favourites.
Nobody playing in New Zealand.
South Africa, when the favourites, are horrible. That's what Victor told me.
I've arrived once at Eden Park as favourite, beating New Zealand 3 times in a row before, and they smashed us. So I'm Trimby is saying it. You can never arrive in New Zealand as favourites. New Zealand's always favourites, especially when you play at Eden Park. So it's going to be a massive test match. It's going to be a nice build-up. It's one for the history books. I think the previous time we were there, we should have won, and then they gave Bismarck du Plessis a red card for one of the best tackles ever in world rugby on Dan Carter, and that was screwed us a little bit.
Quite possibly, I thought he should have got 12 weeks, mate. That was quite possibly one of the worst.
It was the best tackle, just under the chest, one solid hit, but that's what happened if you hit Dan Carter hard.
It was so late, it was nearly half time by the time he hit him.
JK. You didn't have those glasses on at the moment, probably. So, no, it's going to be a massive test match. But I would also have preferred New Zealand to sneak this one through against Argentina, going into it, seeing the Boks struggling a little bit. But, they'll be up for it. It's going to be massive. But also, I think the Boks needed this, because after that Australian first game, it just threw everything out, because they had all these plans and normally everything works, and all of a sudden they was, okay, now we need to step back. And now we had this grind of a win, and I think now we can go back to developing the game and going forward.
There's a couple of things that are really critical for me. I think that, like the series in South Africa last year, I don't know if you remember it, Trimby, but the series in South Africa last year was amazing. I thought the rugby was outstanding from both sides. But South Africa won the critical moments, right? And there was a critical moment, and don't get me wrong, Argentina deserved to win, and we didn't. But there was a critical moment around that line-out. There was a couple of critical moments we didn't win. What I think is going to happen is there's no bigger motivation for South Africa coming down to New Zealand and trying to take that record away from us. And there's no bigger motivation for New Zealand to keep the record but also play South Africa. What concerns me is I believe, Trimby, that you're right, that they're going to be really hurting, and they will arrive at Eden Park in the right state of mind, and so will South Africa. That's what makes it so tantalising. But my biggest concern is just the critical moments that South Africa have this really clear understanding when they're under pressure. You know what they're going to do. They're going to work for a penalty, kick you into the corner, maul you, try for another penalty, pick and go. That's their DNA. That's what they go to under pressure. And that's what happened last year in South Africa in both the tests and the critical moments. What did we do? Gave away a couple of penalties and let them do that. So for me, the maturity of this All Black side is going to be really evident at Eden Park, because we're going to have to win the critical moments. It's going to come down to 3 points. You know, it's not going to be a blowout. It's going to be an amazing test match. So that's my only concern when you come off a loss, because you don't have that confidence, right?
Just give us an insight, JK. I remember, and I think it was the 93 Lions, you lost the second test, and really everyone in the country climbed into you as a team, you know, basically said that all the old guys needed to get sacked, you know, you, Fitzpatrick, Fox, etc. It was a really tough week. How are the players going to handle that when everyone's going to start climbing into them? You know, you're saying, well, Jordan didn't play his best game. RD needed to do this, etc., etc. They're going to have to deal with that all week for the next 2 weeks. How do the players deal with that? And is that what they need to respond, or is that just being a pro?
I remember you telling me I played like shit too, Ricardo, after we'd had a couple of beers. So thanks for that, mate.
Well, you did, but
But what the All Blacks want is the truth, right? So the first thing you need to do is look in the mirror and go, okay, what do I need to do and how do I need to get better? You've got to shut out the noise. And to be fair, back in those days, we didn't have the social media noise, right? So I'm very aware, as you are, Victor and Trimby, because we're ex-players. I didn't criticise Will Jordan. I said he didn't have his best game, because if he looks in the mirror, he will know he didn't have his best game. So he will block out all that noise and go, what was it? Was it my mental preparation? Was it this? Was it that? Am I worried about stuff? And he'll just have to button down and really concentrate on it. I was obviously a little bit different mentally. I would physically feel sick for 2 days. So I couldn't sleep, or I had to struggle to eat just because I felt physically sick after losing games like that. But everyone will be different, and you're just going to have to deal with it. I reckon it's way harder now. I mean, you guys are younger than me. I didn't have to really deal with social media. I only had to deal with Ricardo mainly.
Yeah, I think that's actually a nice thing, because after a loss like that, because there's so many white noise out there, the teams normally turns inwards. So they turn to each other. They start talking to each other. What can we do? And that's why teams normally come back much better, because all of a sudden they're not listening to everything that's out there, even tell them how good they are, listening to this. And all of a sudden they cut all of that off, talk to each other, listen, what do we need to do? Especially when it's a bit more experienced team that's had success before. They turn to each other, listen, talk hard to each other as well, and they go out and they perform. So I think a lot of the time that's good, because sometimes when it goes too well, players like to listen how good they are and follow everything that just gives them all the credit and everything. So sometimes it's good just to turn inwards, talk to each other. Let's fix it within those four walls.
I reckon it probably goes both directions in countries like South Africa and New Zealand, where rugby is just part of the cultural DNA. In Ireland, we probably don't have that quite so much. Everywhere else, we don't have that maybe to the same extent. Maybe in France, I'm not sure, but it feels like, yeah, when things are going well, or things are going a little bit well, they go amazingly well, because everybody gets behind it and the whole country becomes this juggernaut of confidence. And it's hard to go to that country and play that country on site in their backyard and then overcome that. It seems like a big challenge. But the other way it happens as well, and France is another good example, where their supporters get on their back if things aren't going well, and you start to kind of run out these scenarios in your head. If New Zealand lose to South Africa, it's an absolute crisis. It's a complete crisis. The entire country is just it's a disaster. And then where do they go from there? And then they start catastrophizing everything. Imagine we lose again. Where do we go from here? And do we just replace rugby as the national sport? Do they all start playing tennis or golf? Or what do we do? And it's that
Trivia,
kind of
have
crisis.
You been drinking, mate? Have you just come from the pub or something? Have you had too many
I'm just enjoying this. I'm just enjoying how this maybe.
Mate, you're kidding yourself. Like, I really used to like you. Now you're really annoying me.
I knew we would get to this point. Everybody gets to this point with me eventually, JK, and it took longer than I thought it would. But the turning into themselves, Victor, is an interesting one, because you can do it once. How many times? You guys maybe haven't, but if you've played for a team like Ulster, where we've been up and down, or Ireland actually as well, through the years, you have a crisis meeting on Monday morning, and you're going, okay, we've lost a couple of big games here now. This is an inflection point. It goes either this way or this way. And your crisis meeting is, right, lads, pull it together. But if you follow that with, there's another crisis meeting next week, then I think it changes. You turn to each other, you're supportive one week, and then you turn on each other the next week. And that changes very quickly.
There's another option. And that's the Steve Hansen option. And he got terribly criticised when he said it. But he said it was such a shit performance where you just flush it down the toilet. And that is actually another option. That is an option where you just go, one out of the bag. We need to improve these three things. We're not even going to watch it. Just move on, right? And I think that the most important thing for me is Will Jordan is one of the greatest rugby players in the world. Adi Savia is one of the best rugby players in the world. Bowden Barrett, right? There's no talk that they are over or too old. The talk is we didn't perform as a football team. So I think it's a little bit different back when we played Ricardo, because people used to retire and they used to tell you to retire and they used to talk about your age. But like Will Jordan's probably had 200 games where I've never seen him play poorly. You know, he just had a quiet game, but he'll be really hurting with that. And what I'm saying is we need those guys in those critical moments. So I don't want them to lose confidence in themselves. I don't need any of them going, and I don't think they will, guys, because they're mature professionals. You know, they'll go back to, you know, we say bone deep preparation. Did they do the bone deep preparation last week? And maybe they didn't. Maybe they had a few too many, you know, bries, as you would call them, Victor. You know, maybe they just thought they were bone deep, but they weren't. So hopefully there's a simple solution. But you have to shut it out. There's so many great players I played with that couldn't actually shut it out or deal with the next level. So it takes a special player to play test matches. It takes a special player to play X amount of test matches like an Artie and like a Will, and they will shut it out and they will be outstanding. I'm with Victor. I think it's actually a good thing that we lost, but there's other parts of the game that I'm worried about. You know, the bench coming on, making a couple of errors, those critical moments. You know, this is more about who's going to win that test match.
Victor, I've never seen you smile so much during a show.
We've spoken about it, and it's also to have the right players on the field when the pressure moments come. Because I just felt, and I mean, I looked in that last 10 minutes, the mistakes. I mean, I think there was 3 minutes left or 4 minutes left. Argentina kicked that long kick into the 22, and you guys just kicked the ball out, and you're 9 points behind. And I'm like, this can't be the right decision right now. And we felt it last week the same. When we were under pressure, we didn't have the right players on the field. So you need to make sure, especially in that last 20, 30 minutes, when the pressure's on, you need the right players on the field.
No changes?
No, you can change, but you must know, let's say you've got a guy, I don't know, but with us, if you've got Andre Pollard there, you want him there in the last 10, 15 minutes. You can't, there's no way you can take him off if the test match is a pressure game. Because he will win those moments. He will make the right decisions. Where some of the other guys might not make the right decisions because they haven't been there. They haven't been in those situations. So, yeah, for me, it's a lot of the time these days you see people pulling, let's say, a captain or someone, and I'm thinking, it's his toughest time. When I was playing, when those tough times were coming, I didn't want to go off the field. I wanted to be in the field. I want to be in that moment to have that opportunity to make the big play. And those are the plays that you want on the field.
Do you think going into this test match, Victor, that South Africa will be able to find that right balance? You know, they've tried one way, then they went another way. Obviously, the idea is to go into a test match and play the right balance, you know, play expansive when it's on and tighten up when they need to. Do you think they're in a place now where they can make those decisions?
I think they will feel a little bit more comfortable this week, that they think, okay, we can breathe again. Last week they couldn't breathe in South Africa, I promise you. And it was almost like Trimby said, if we lost another game, it was like all of a sudden, this squad's too old. This is done. We need to change. Is Rassie still good enough? And I mean, Rassie is Dr. Rassie in South Africa. So that pressure was just so high. But going to New Zealand, I think the way to beat them is playing South African rugby, the way we played them this weekend. Don't give them anything. Just smother them in their own half. Kick those high balls on them. Don't give them space. Use your set piece. So that's still my thinking. Rassie doesn't always think like that, so he might be a bit more attacking. But like JK said last year as well, when we were in trouble, under pressure, we went back to the DNA and we pulled those games through. So I think that's the way we should beat them at Eden Park.
I wonder if South Africa, the right approach for South Africa might be to do a game plan like the one you described for the first 60 minutes, 65 minutes. And if they feel like then they're starting to get that pressure starting to tell, now they're starting to, New Zealand are coughing up a couple of balls, or maybe South Africa are just starting to get a little bit more quick ball, then they introduce that expansive nature and just put the ball into the hands of Colby and the rest of the outside backs and just let them run at that stage. So do the hard work for 60, 65 minutes, and then the pressure might. The only problem with that is that's not what happened against Australia. They did that and they never actually got to that. It never played out like we've seen it in the past. So I wonder if that game is effective enough to get that game against Australia across the line, but will it be effective enough to beat New Zealand in New Zealand, and then the game kind of unravel or loosen up towards the end? That'll allow them to add that layer of a different type of game plan. Maybe we've seen it in the past, but just we didn't see it for the last couple of weeks. That's a concern.
And JK, are the South Africans underestimating our fullback? Because again, when you look at that Argentinian game, when we were under pressure, we went back to scrumming for penalties, kicking to the corner, mauling over for a try. So can we not match them at that level?
Yeah, of course we can, Ricardo. That's like
they want to play like South Africa.
That's all three of you being ridiculous on this show today. It's like, it sounds like, Trimby, do you realise like 60% of New Zealanders are Irish, mate? Like, you sound like you're supporting South Africa. But anyway, we'll get back to that. To answer your question, Ricardo, I think there was a time where South Africa set the standard of scrummaging. And I'm talking, 15, 20 years ago. And New Zealand has always had South Africa as the pinnacle of scrummaging, possibly England. So you have to win your set pieces, and this is a winger talking about this, right? I don't think when we talk about South African DNA, they're always going to have a great line out with massive men like Victor, and that nothing changes. So they've got 3 or 4 options. They're very, very competent at the scrum, and they're massive men. When I think about South African DNA, it's actually when they get round the corner and you've just got these big men just charging at you. They'll target the inside channel. They'll target Bowden Barrett if he's playing. They'll try and get over the vantage line. They just get this roll on, right? And they're waiting for you. And I'll tell you what, the discipline of New Zealand from the offside point of view was totally unacceptable. You get offside against South Africa, then they go to their DNA, right? They're going to go, we've trundled it up, we're going to kick you to the corner, and then we're going to maul you, right? And I just think that if you can't match them in the scrum or in the line-out, then you don't have a game. That's the minimum, right? But then you've got to match their physicality, and then you've got to stay completely clean so you don't give them that chance to go to the penalty, kick to the corner, I'm going to maul you, and then I'm going to scrum you.
Yeah, last year, the New Zealand pack actually did really well in South Africa. The scrum was solid. I think the lineup was probably better than ours, and their mauling game was good. So that's something we actually haven't seen from South Africa so far this year. It's the mauling game. We play a lot of 4 and 5 men, play away from it. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see if we go back to a little bit of mauling. That will be good for me. I will enjoy that.
Just think, here we are, Victor's enjoying a week after the All Blacks loss, and already we're starting to talk about that game at Eden Park. It's not this weekend. It's still got a bit of time to go, but that's how big that game is. It's how exciting an opportunity it is for us to really embrace this rivalry, and then to have Trimby just to wind us all up. So let's thank you, Victor. Thank you for enjoying this week so much, Victor, and I'm glad we've given you so much enjoyment.
Jimmy, I'll send that Springbok jersey over for you in the courier. So we'll be there by Wednesday, I think.
Send some biltong. Send some biltong as
well.
Yeah,
biltong as well.
Thank all 3 of you for annoying the hell out of me for 45 minutes. That was great. Thank you.
JK, given how sad you and the rest of New Zealand are, what's the plan with the ice baths this week? Just drop it down to 1 or 2 degrees? Go extra cold, extra long? What do you do?
I'm just going to punish myself so I feel better because I can't actually do anything about the game. So, yeah, I'm going to stick my head in for as long as I can and see what happens.
Snorkel.
I think a lot of people will enjoy that. Thanks very much, gentlemen, and we'll catch you next week on
guys.
Rivals.